one of the hardest jobs in politics is to be in charge of the people who are going to lose.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
yeah,
like that was it. Johnny Isakson actually once he was the minority leader when he was before he became a U.S. Senator. He's a Republican, and he was the leader of the Republicans back during the 130 years of Democratic dominance. And he once said, minority leader is a job that has neither carrot nor stick. You can't promise and you can't punish. But that means if you're going to be successful at it, you learn how to navigate spaces. You learn how to work with people with whom you have nothing in common except the breath you breathe.
Yeah.
You learn how to take wins that don't look like wins to everyone else, but sometimes the victory is making sure people don't get hurt worse.
Yeah, right.
That's the job. And I learned to be fairly effective at it.
And like, I would like you to be vice president.
Well, thank you.
You would like to be vice president, right?
I have mentioned it when asked, yes.
And what do you see that role as being?
Well, I first see it as a role that Joe Biden he's going to decide what he needs and who he needs. My responses, which I think have been sort of blown way out of proportion, I answer questions as honestly as I can. And it's a question people seem to really like asking me. So I answer it each time I'm asked.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, it's the job of a lieutenant.
Yeah.
The vice president is there to support the president's vision.
Yeah.
And personally, I think one of the spaces where we have seen the deepest erosion of our democracy is in the active exercise of our democracy. And Joe Biden has spoken to his belief that we need to do more. I think that's an important job. I think it's going to be a critical job to think about recovery. I mean, to your point earlier, people seem to have forgotten that we're in the midst of a pandemic.
Yeah.
The people who haven't forgotten are the ones who have lost their jobs and they're not coming back, who are economically decimated. And if you're a person of color, namely a Black person, the likelihood of you getting this disease and dying from it is disproportionate to your part of the population. We have to think about how do we recover from a pandemic that is not going to dissipate. We've stopped having the daily alarms in part because we've now hit this sort of steady state of infection that is abnormally high. And so the next president is going to have to figure out, how do you deal with the systemic inequities, the racism, and the infrastructure destruction done by the Republicans to rebuild communities that will simply have no other hope but governmental investment and governmental intervention. And we've got to think about it at the local, state, and federal level. And much as I encourage people to vote at every level, it's because the laws are different, the rules are different, the responsibilities are different. And we're going to need to think about, how do you serve on those three levels?
Wow. Now, I don't know why I don't really want to ask this question, but what do you see happening if that doesn't happen?
I mean, look, I'm from the South. I always anticipate the worst.
Yeah.
But I'm from the South, so I have hope, the best, and I work for it.
Yeah.
But should it, for some reason, not come to fruition, our responsibilities don't change.
Yeah.
And
our
first obligation is to do what we can to make certain it doesn't happen. And that's why fighting voter suppression, but also authentically engaging the protesters and demonstrators, and not catering to this idea that if we just pat them on the head, that things will go away, but that we legitimately engage and we validate the anger and the pain, that we also remind them of the tools, because one of the reasons for the book is that there are tools we can use.
Yeah.
And we know they're out there because the Republicans have been using them for a while to dismantle our access.
Right.
I mean, that's why I spent the whole chapter talking about the census, which to some people is about as interesting as my article on Mesopotamian astronomy.
Yeah.
But the census is one of the most effective tools that we never use on the progressive side. It is not just a count of who we are. It is a tally of what we need and it's a roadmap for what we're going to do. And it lays out both economic and political power. And we act like it's a surprise every 10 years.
Yeah.
Instead of treating it as what the Republicans treat it as, they see it as a weapon. They see it as a weapon of war against these very communities. I see it as a weapon of peace. If we can do this work with it, if we can energize and engage and actually follow it through, we start to invest more in the communities who need it. We start to fund those new systems to replace the systems of inequity.
Yeah.
But we can't do it if we don't get counted. And if they can tell the story that says that the nation isn't as diverse as we think it is, because that means the political power isn't diversified. It means economic opportunities aren't diversified. It means those with power continue to have even more of it.
And you just got to get people to fill it out. It takes 5 minutes.
It does.
It takes. I've told people on my show, just do it.
But think about it. So you had the president of the United States spend a year and a half scaring every immigrant out of filling it out.
Yeah.
Because of the citizenship question. If you're a black person or a brown person who lives in a state that seems to be a carceral state where you do anything wrong, they're going to come and get you. There's been the rumor that if you fill out the census,
right,
they can use it to arrest you.
They can come get you.
They can come get you. What I remind people of is if you have a utility bill or a cell phone, they already know where you are.
Sure.
Fill out the census so you can get your money. But we can't ignore the fact that a lot of work has been done to create suspicion, to diminish people's belief that it actually works. It's not how long it takes. It's what does it mean if I do it? And what does it mean if I don't? And that's my responsibility. That's what you're doing. We've got to tell people that the risk is actually low, but the reward is quite high. But they've got to get past the fear of the risk.
Now, when you said earlier, we were talking about you answering the question about vice president, about wanting the job and how you look at the job. Why do you think you get flack for just stepping up and answering honestly?
So I think one is that I've been in this unusual position. I've gotten this question for 15 months, starting in March of 2019. No one usually gets the question because I had lunch with the vice president and a story got planted that we were talking about me running on a ticket with him.
Right.
So I got all these questions. I answered honestly then. I said, you don't run for second place in a primary.
Yeah.
But people forget the second half of my sentence. There was a comma. I said, but if I don't run and someone wants to consider me, I'd be honored to be selected.
Right.
And since that time, almost every time I've talked to a reporter,
yeah,
the question has come up. I believe in consistency and candor, so I give the answer. And about a month ago, I was on television. I did like 3 shows back to back because I was trying to raise $100 million for the families on SNAP benefits who were not getting their stimulus checks.
Yeah.
And at the same time, Brian Kemp was trying to kill Georgia by reopening the state after being one of the last people to close it without doing the necessary steps. And nobody remembers the first 2/3 of the interviews. They just keep remembering the question I got at the end that I answered.
Right.
So, I understand that people misconstrue candor for campaigning. I wasn't. I do the same thing on pretty much any conversation. If you ask me a question, I'm going to answer it.
But do you feel that the response, do you think that it's relative to sexism or to...
Yeah, look, part of what motivates me to be so candid, but also confident is that I recognize that I don't look like what people are used to. And when they think about positions of power, when they think about higher office, there have only been 2 Black women to be U.S. senators in American history. There's never been a governor. There have only been 15 Black women ever elected to statewide office in the history of the nation.
Wow.
So I don't look like what they're used to, but I also know how people think. And if you want people to start to imagine more, you've got to tell them what that can look like. And as I've said before, I'm not just answering for myself. I'm answering for every woman of color, every young woman, every young person of color who imagines what they can be. And if I deny what I think I'm capable of, I give people permission to not only deny me, but to also deny them. And I was raised to do better.
Well, thank you. Got me choked up. Yeah, a couple of times just to hear you speak, I get choked up. So that means you have a big future in politics.
Well, thank you.
Was-
Well, I have to tell you,
Yeah.
Jason Kander is a dear friend. He and I met in a fellowship program, and I told him he was very excited that I was going to be on your show, and I promised to let you know that he just thinks the world of you, and he says hi.
Oh, that's sweet. Yeah, he texted me the other day. He's a good guy.
He really is.
Well, thanks for talking to me, Stacey. I appreciate it.
Marc, this has been wonderful, and I deeply, deeply appreciate it.
Okay, take care of yourself.
You too.
That was me and Stacey Abrams. Again, the book, Our Time Is Now, Power, Purpose, and the Fight for a Fair America is available. I very much enjoyed talking to her. What else? Don't forget, Simply Safe is the home security for right now when feeling safe at home has never been more important. Simply Safe was designed to be easy to use while protecting your whole home 24/7, starting at 50 cents a day. Order online easily. Open the box, place the sensors, plug it in, and your home is protected around the clock. No technician has to come to your house. Head to simplysafe.com/WTF and get a free HD camera right now. Okay? Okay. Let's dig into the heart, play a few chords. Boomer lives.